Welcome to the Leadership Exposé podcast. This podcast is for purpose-driven leaders at diverse levels and organizations around the world who are seeking to scale and transform their leadership, to level up their business, and to create an impact in the lives of people all around them. Business and boardroom topics, trends, innovation, transformation, and the intersection with leadership is the focus. We enable success. I'm your host, Stephen Paul. In this episode, we welcome Elodie O'Rourke. Elodie is the Customer Success Director and Leader at the Financial Times and co-chair of FT Families. She's passionate about making businesses successful by capitalizing on customer centricity and more widely about diversity and inclusion leading to social change. We will learn about Elodie, her views about customer centricity and D&I within businesses today. Elodie, welcome. Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm really well, thank you. Thanks for having me, first of all. So really happy to be here.
Wonderful. I know just before we started the podcast, we were exchanging where we're based. As you know, I'm based here in the UK, in the Greater London area. Tell us a little bit about where you're based.
So I'm now based in Amsterdam, but it's still, well, in my head at least, fairly recent. But while I was talking to you, I realized that in June it's going to be 2 years already. And so my company is obviously very British because I'm working at the Financial Times and my head office is still in London. But I came here to open a branch. And funnily enough, it actually started as a joke because back then my boss said, "Oh, we are opening a branch in Amsterdam," and say, "Oh, can I go?" as a joke, and then say, "Well, actually, we need someone to go there to manage the office and everything." So I was like, "Oh, okay." So yeah, this is how it all started.
Wonderful. And such an interesting vision and goal that I mean, obviously your company is leading on, but you're at the forefront of it, starting an FT office in Amsterdam. Is it actually just for Amsterdam, or is it for the region, or for a group of countries, or?
So we do already have what we call bureaus all over Europe. So like in Brussels, which is probably the biggest one in Europe because we have like quite a few journalists based there due to the nature of the city, which is the European capital, as you know. Then we have a bureau in Paris, Madrid, Frankfurt, and Sofia, which is quite a large hub as well, but it's more our product team that is based there. And then for Amsterdam, it was actually my department was leading on this instance, and it was to send a strong message post-Brexit to our European customer, and also to have a presence in Amsterdam because it's quite a financial hub as well, with all the high tech going on, and trying to also attract new customers in that field.
Okay, wonderful. We'll talk a little bit more about that one later on, but I'm keen to hear about, your personal and professional journey, and obviously all of that leading to what you're doing now. But tell us a little bit about where it all started, and, for you personally and professionally, how you've actually navigated through all of this.
Well, if I have to summarize my career journey, is that I had to reinvent myself several times to adapt with the economic downturn, or because initially I'm French and I was based in south of France, and I graduated in logistic and transport, but it was right after the 9/11 event, and I wanted to work for airlines or in the airline industry, and obviously, it didn't work really well. So I had to reinvent myself, and then I was like, actually, I did that journey more to please my family rather than to like a real passion for logistic and transport. And then I was like, okay, what shall I do? And I was already kind of doing some volunteering with accessibility and making tourism activities accessible to children impaired children. So because I was living in south of France, which is very touristy, as everybody knows. And then it all started like this. So I actually redone some studies. I qualified as a carer actually for disabled people. And my family was really shocked because I went from a university degree to something that is absolutely not related, and it's more a physical job. But very long story short, I managed to, through that path, I actually met my last boss in France, who is a senior architect. He's working for the French government, and he's helping out businesses to become accessible. And the government in France actually subsidized some businesses too, because there are very specific laws and how you should be accessible for every public venue, actually. So, and we met, and he was like a kind of professional love at first sight. So he actually hired me as his assistant, and he's disabled himself. So that's how I got to meet him. And then he believed in me, and as a true Pygmalion, basically taught me everything. And I went from a very like his assistant doing more admin work to actually being his like real assistant and doing some a lot of work regarding accessibility, leading some project and stuff like this. And then at some point I met my husband, who wasn't my husband yet, who's British. And then we were like, okay, what do we do now? And obviously, south of France is not the best place to find a good job. And he was working he's still working actually in the video game industry. So at some point I was like, okay, I will move to the UK. But back then I didn't speak English, or I barely spoke English, so that was really bad. And then I was like, okay, well, once again, I had to reinvent myself. So very long story short, I couldn't do what I was doing in France, but I had this DNA still in me, you know. So, and because French was the only option for me, at the very beginning, I started to work in call centers. But then I actually got promoted very quickly. And then at some point I was like in customer service. I was like, this is not for me. I mean, I was doing well. I was hitting all my targets. I was even promoted to my people management position. But then I was like, that's not my thing. So I stopped, I paused, I reflected, and then I ended up landing a job at DFT as a customer success manager. And this is how my new career started, if I may say.
Amazing. Yeah, as you were describing it, I'm just hearing several pivotal moments in your career and your personal journey to, as you described it, to redefine yourself or reinvent yourself. But I'm also hearing a lot of agility. You were just able to navigate through from where I'm sitting and where I'm hearing seamlessly. In my view, that's more related to your values and how you've actually just operated built in. But you also mentioned about D&I and that within your DNA. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, first of all, it's because in my inner cycle, some people were impacted by disabilities. So for me, it was really, it's always been like a cause close to my heart, if I may say so, because I had some in my own mother, or even like different type of disability, physical or neurodivergent people. Yeah, so for me it was important, especially because well, if you know me, what I can be very, as you said, agile and flexible, but I can't stand unfairness. So I can be very diplomatic and everything. I was actually joking about that with my team and boss recently, to say if I see unfairness somewhere, I will go berserk, and almost like my French side would come out and be like, no, no, no. And then actually at DFT, which is absolutely fantastic, we do have quite a lot of ERGs, and D&I is very important for the company to the board level. And then everything started, my D&I journey at DFT, because one of my colleagues heard about a new ERG group starting, which was called, well, at the beginning, it didn't even have a name, but now they are called FT Access. And then I say, well, I have those skills. And it's a shame that I don't use these skills, and I didn't really have the as you know, I mean, London life is quite busy, so I didn't really have the time to volunteer next to my job because it was quite demanding. And on the weekend, sometimes I just wanted to relax or to see my friends or do whatever I wanted to do. And then I was like, okay, so it's a good way for me to actually use those skills, and then instead of completely forgetting about that side of me, which is still very important to me. And then actually they are doing really well with FT Access. And then I was like, I became a mom. And I was like, maybe I saw a gap, like, okay, we have hefty women, that's great. We have Proud for LGBTQ plus people. We have FT Embrace for people from the BAME community, etc. But then we don't really have anything for FT families. And then I didn't come up with the idea actually, but I was part of the founding members. And then because the pandemic happened in the middle, and then I was like, it's even more important now because we couldn't use childcare or schools anymore. And then this is all it was really useful to have, at least we use Slack at DFT, and to have a group where people could share their despair, or they're just like, oh, how do you do, to even manage to work and look after your children and la la la. And I was lucky enough back then that my daughter, she was too young to go to school, so I didn't have to homeschool. But imagine when you have to do that on top of this. So and then we drove some activities, and yeah, this is how it all started. And yeah, I'm still very passionate about that.
Amazing. It's very interesting how you actually described, FT success, but also how you've championed some of those discussions within. You mentioned about board, about management teams, and so forth. And where you're at now, you also mentioned about some channels that you use, like Slack, to actually probably get
Yes.
the communication rolling. So that's very good. But broadly, I mean, aside from D&I, in your view, what types of conversations should companies be having, at executive team or even at leadership level, board level? What do they, what types of conversations should they be actively thinking about? I mean, D&I is obviously one of them, and feel free to elaborate on that. But if there's anything else in your view, share, please.
Yeah, of course, DNA, it's very important because, and it's actually linked to customer centricity, because when you're a leader in a company, your customers are your employees in a way, because you can't operate without your employees, and they are your customers in a way. So you have to, of course, it's like in French, there is a saying which is, oh, the customer is king. It's not like that, actually. Because at some point you need to, if you're real about customer centricity, you need to actually attract the right customers. And if a customer is not the right customer for you, you actually have to have those difficult conversations and to let them go. And it's exactly the same with your employees. So also you need to listen to them. Same with customer, like real customer, because instead of assuming what people need, you need to hear directly from them. I mean, like, even if you're the best intentioned person in the world, like for instance, although I didn't come up with like from a wealthy background, I'm still a white privileged woman in a sense, especially now in my current position. What do I know about what a Black person, for instance, is living, or the racism they are facing in their day-to-day job? I have absolutely, well, I'm trying to educate myself, of course, but it's not the same. You don't experience it. Why do I know about someone who's actually stuck in a wheelchair? I don't know. I'm lucky enough to be healthy, and you know what I mean? So you need to hear from the people directly. And also you shouldn't shy away from difficult conversation, because well, first of all, anything good happen in your comfort zone and where you pretend everything is okay, because there is always room for improvement. So you need to have those controversial conversation, and you need to build some trust with your employees as a leader, and or your customers, because you need to trust them. They will tell you if something is not going on, but also don't expect them to solve all your problem like that. You need to be proactive about it and ask for feedback and all the voice of the customer, etc. So I think for me, customer centricity is very important, and you can't succeed without making your customers happy. And as a company, you can't succeed if your employees are unhappy, because if they're unhappy, they will spread some negativity, they will potentially leave, you will lose talent, losing talent costs money, etc., etc.
Yeah, Elodie, it's such a great way of describing it, that intersection between that customer centricity, the staff, the employees, your external clients, and, the D&I elements of it. I'm working with a number of companies as well, executive teams, board level teams. That concept around customer centricity, it's very diluted in many organizations. And you mentioned about customer is king, and you're right, it's not that. There's a much more broader meaning to that, and how some of these executive teams and board level members define that and how they kind of embed it is such an important aspect. But it sounds like, with your vision of what it could mean for your environment, you are championing that, and that's just great to hear how you've described it and how you're actually asking why, you're challenging, having those difficult conversations, why not, is great to hear how you're actually bringing that to the forefront. So uh, you are in an influential role. I see that you are in an influential role. Are there any experiences or stories that you want to share or elaborate from what you are experiencing now as a senior leader, that's resulting in positive outcomes? I mean, you've already mentioned a few, but is there anything else that you want to kind of elaborate on?
Yeah, I think also what I used to tell my team as well is that you don't need to be a manager to be a leader.
True.
First of all, because I actually became a people manager almost by accident. And also because I was bored in my customer service little time, because it didn't even last 3 years in my career. And then I was like, okay, what about, actually I got convinced by a colleague, like, oh, you should apply and see how it goes. And actually I realized that I liked it. But and then when I was doing a bit of retrospective, I realized that in my early years, in my youth, I was actually taking some leadership role with my in my spare time, because I was involved in charities, or even I was passionate about music, and I was animating, and I was the admin on a forum. Back then it wasn't social media, was other things, so it was on forums, etc. So don't. And also what I tell my team which is, I apply this to myself: don't expect anybody in your life to make you happy. You own your life, you own your career. So it is important for you to actually assess, first of all, what makes you happy, and then to try to go with it. Because if you are happy, it's going to sound very cheesy, but everything will come to you almost naturally. Of course, as Seneca, the Roman philosopher, used to say, like, luck is when preparation meets opportunity, and this is exactly how it is. So, but even when I hear, I don't believe in fate. It's just you make your life, you make things up. I'm the best example of this. I mean, who would have thought, even in my family, when I said I leave everything, I took 2 suitcases with me, and I went to the UK. I didn't speak well, I spoke English, but like very broken English. They were like, "You're crazy. I mean, you have a good life here." And I was like, "I don't know. I just want to go there and try." And I knew that at some point I reached a ceiling. So yeah, that's why. And actually, my current role is still recent, because I'm in this role for how long? 9 months now. And yeah, it's just, even if it happened because I had this opportunity, but I told my boss back then that I was actually job hunting because I felt that I was a bit bored in my role. And then I was like, okay, of course I love GFT. I feel that that's for me a great company to work with and to work for. But then I was like, okay, but I feel like I've done my job long enough and I need more now. I need to stretch myself. So don't expect people to serve everything on a silver platter to you. I think it's very true for any professional, but also I would tell exactly the same thing to my children, because otherwise you will be disappointed if you expect something to come up from an external stakeholder, or if you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. And building on that, you know, success means different things to different people. What's one thing that you feel is your secret formula to your success?
Um, oh, that's a very good question. I do a lot of self-reflection
Mhm.
and check-ins with myself. Even the well, it's a bit personal, but without oversharing. Like everybody else, like every year I'm suffering from the Blue Monday, especially because I'm coming from a sunny place and living in Northern Europe. It's tough for me. So, and usually the Blue Monday is the tipping point of my lack of sun and depression. So usually I book my summer holidays at that time because it just makes me happy to think about actually soon it's going to be springtime and then I'm going to go on holiday, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I was like, okay, let me. But I don't know. This time around, it was a bit like different. And then I was like, but I have everything in my life to be happy. Why I feel so down right now? And actually, I read a book. I'm still reading it, which is I can't. I wouldn't give justice to the. I'm really bad with names and titles, but it's a book about actually a leadership, and to realize that most leaders are not happy.
Mhm.
And actually, it gives you tips. I can send you the link when I will find out, but
Please.
gives you
Yeah.
tips to actually, first of all, assess your own happiness,
Mhm.
and then to try to find out what makes you happy, because everybody knows there are tons of studies about that, that actually, even when you get a promotion and a big salary bump or a new role, the buzz you have, it doesn't last. So it's really important to really assess what truly makes you happy. And it can be different things for different peoples, but that's where the self-reflection bits,
Yeah.
it's really important.
Yeah, I like the way you position that, and that's such an important aspect, self reflection, and you know the actions that you take associated with it, um, because that kind of just grows you and rebuilds you as well,
Yeah.
in terms of looking at the present and the future as well. So you alluded to a few things around what you do. So what does the day in the life of Elodie look like these days? Morning to evening.
Well, I don't sleep much. I'm trying to actually, talking about self-reflection, I'm trying to refocus myself sometimes because I have this butterfly syndrome, or I'm a bit of an overachiever and I'm trying to do more. And actually last night I was really proud of myself because someone asked me, oh, would you like to mentor me? And my normal self would be, oh, yes, of course. And then I was like, actually, I'm at max capacity now. I can find someone else if you want, because I already signed up for a mentoring thing. And then, yeah, it's very busy. So, first of all, I'm a mom of two. My children are very young. And I made a commitment to be still, despite being very career oriented, to be still present in my children's life. So there is a lot of flexibility going on, and I'm very lucky to that my boss actually and my company have a really good policy when it comes to flexible working. Also, it actually helped me that most of my meetings and calls are with people based in different locations with different time zones. So it helped me with the flexibility bit. And then I have some non-negotiable slot where I actually look after my family. So like early morning, like 6 to 8 p.m. usually. Sometimes I do work at night. But then, as I said, I try to refocus myself because sometimes I'm like anybody else, you just do your stuff and then you finish to do your mommy duties or whatever. And then you look at the time, you're like, oh my God, it's already 10 p.m., but I need to relax a bit. And then the worst case scenario, you actually turn on Netflix and then you get into this rabbit hole of, so you don't sleep much, etc. So now I'm trying to refocus myself to do some meaningful things as well, like because I love reading. And then I realized that in the last couple of years, thanks to or because of social media, the screen time, that I was actually spending way too much time on screen. And I was like, I used to literally read like thousands of books. And then I realized that since the smartphone became a thing, I'm reading a lot, but online. And then I'm like, it's not good. So anyway, so yeah, I'm doing that. So I don't sleep a lot, but enough to keep me going. It's actually quite fast-paced and busy, but this is who I am, because if it's too quiet, when I was on maternity leaves, for instance, this is where I actually boosted my career, because I was reading tons of business books and watching TED Talks and actually spending quite some time on LinkedIn instead of scrolling Instagram or doing mindless stuff on Facebook. Or of course I was doing it a bit, but try to make the most of my downtime. Of course I wasn't, you're busy when you're not on holiday, when you're on maternity leave, but I needed my mind to be stimulated, otherwise it feels I'm getting bored easily. Anyway.
Yeah, no, what wonderful. Some of the key words as you were describing all of this that's coming to mind about you is well-roundedness, reinvention, refocusing, self-reflection, agility, and keeping your mind awake
Yes.
with new things and kind of accessing some of the things that's kind of dead. You mentioned about online versus just what was there previously, in terms of reading and so forth. So well done to you on that one. Elodie, share with us any we're coming to a close now, so share with us any closing messages or a challenge to other leaders, at different levels. As you mentioned, everyone is a leader in their own right. That's my philosophy as well. But any closing messages or challenge to other leaders, executives, boards, staff members, organizations, industries, anything that you want to share?
Well, I actually think one of the most important thing as a leader is to be vulnerable. And we have this tendency to think that, oh, I need to be strong, but I think it's more inspiring when your leader or your leaders, because you can be inspired by so many people, not only your boss, right, are actually showing that sometimes they are failing, sometimes they are tired, sometimes they are sad, because at the end of the day, we're all human beings, and you can't just expect people to be inspired by a cold-hearted person that only cares about business and targets and KPI and profit and losses. Because at the end of the day, your team, they have life outside of work, and you have to acknowledge that, and without being their therapist, right? But still, and I think the best way of doing that is also to lead by example, and by showcasing that sometimes, yes, you have bad days, sometimes you are tired, sometimes you can't focus because you didn't sleep well, because your child woke up in the middle of the night, that type of thing. And that's why I like very much about my own leaders at DFT, because they are quite genuine and honest, and they can show that sometimes they are not perfect, because I think when you pretend you're perfect, you send the wrong messages, and this is how this toxicity start building up in your company. So yeah.
It's that intersection of intersection of a leader and a human.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well done, well done. Okay, well, thank you very much, Elodie, for being with us today and sharing your journey, your insights, and your perspectives as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. Have a lovely day.
Wonderful. Okay, folks, thank you very much for listening in and stay tuned for our next episode on e-residence and an e-residence leader in the Baltics who shares her journey on building the next generation digital residence infrastructure. Stay tuned. Hey, I hope you enjoy the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. You're now seeing this part of the video also because you consume some of my content, insights, and teachings. Maybe you've been to my LinkedIn page or website or seen other social media ads or listened to my podcast. I'm Stephen Paul, a business and transformational executive coach, strategic advisor, leader, and board member. I've been in diverse roles, corporate executive, entrepreneur, and worked with businesses and firms of all sizes, built and launched businesses, created high-impact boards, and so forth in 4 continents. I get it. I've been there, done that, but what is different is I bring a unique perspective and a playbook. I've helped 100+ business leaders just like you to scale and align their leadership top teams, the board, and overall business for growth. Leaders like Ivana from medium-sized company in the EU who grew 150% and expanded globally in under 5 months. After she started to work with me over facilitated sessions in an initial 3 days, I helped fine-tune their strategy and align their leadership team and board to be a cohesive driving force to achieve their dreams and outcomes. I want to teach you the same thing and more on how to scale and align your leadership team and board so you can increase your business growth and value. Get clarity on what is the next right strategy for you. There are multiple ways we can work with you. Number 1, click the link for a free, non-obligatory 60-minute initial strategic session. Let's get a feel for your dreams, your vision, your challenges, and let me convert that into a roadmap for you where we can co-develop and co-pilot. Number 2, enroll in an innovative and intuitive digital online course that I have created to help you transform. It's called Unshakable Resilience. It is the ultimate program for individuals and business leaders like you who want to be equipped at a personal and professional level to respond to any form of challenges or in crisis situations and take on opportunities with grit, resilience, and build a mindset of success. In essence, you want to be unshakable, thrive in crisis, take on opportunities in the face of adversity, and build a success mindset. So, click the link below to learn more on how I can personally help you individually and your firm to scale and align your leadership team and business and pivot in a transformational way. And for you to experience this, whatever the challenge you're facing, get in touch with me. Let's discuss, and I will share my insight rapidly to enable your transformation. Click the links below.